The late Princess Margaret had 2 children, each of whom had 2 children of their own. So far, they've mostly flown below the tabloid radar, but just who are the 4 grandchildren of the so-called party princess? For many years, Princess Margaret led a life full of wild parties, but on July 28, 1996, her daughter, Lady Sarah Chatto, gave birth to a baby boy, making Margaret a grandmother. Sarah and her husband, Daniel Chatto, named their son Samuel and introduced him to the world in true royal fashion on the front steps of Portland Hospital. After that very public introduction, though, Samuel spent most of his childhood away from the spotlight, studying at Eton College and preparing for life beyond the walls of Buckingham Palace. These days, Sam is 29th in line to the British throne, so it's unlikely he'll ever take up the family business, but royal blood isn't the only thing he's inherited. Like his grandfather, photographer Anthony Armstrong-Jones, Sam is an artist, and he's serious about it. He went to the University of Edinburgh, where he earned a master's degree in history of art in 2018. He also proved his talents at the Royal Drawing School, an institution that attracts up-and-coming British artists. And according to his alumni profile, Sam's ceramics, printmaking, and drawing explore transformation through process. His subjects and materials reflect a deep connection to the landscape around him. Sam is unquestionably a royal, but he leads a far more normal life than many of his royal cousins, great-cousins, grandnieces, and the like. For someone who likes to go his own way, his lack of a title and comfortable distance from the throne may have been a lucky break. Unlike other royals who've made a life out of working for the firm, Sam has found his own professional and creative path, pursuing a career as a potter. Luckily for royal fans, Sam isn't bound by the no social media rule that many royals have to live with. He's shared his professional journey on Instagram on multiple occasions. In 2018, Sam posted about his artistic apprenticeship at Scotland's North Shore Pottery. Happily writing, "I spent 6 weeks in the very north of Scotland immersed in pottery and ceramics, being taught by the most patient and passionate potter. Clay consumed my every waking hour, and I am so excited to see what I can achieve this year." By the following year, Sam was showing his pottery at the Chapel, a restaurant in Somerset, and freely talking about where he wanted to go next with his work. He even launched a website which detailed his creative process and showed his work in an online gallery. While Sam's At the Chapel exhibition was impressive, it was just the beginning. His career as a potter and ceramicist has been taking off ever since. In late 2024, he had an artistic residency in Norway, during which he focused on trying out unfamiliar materials and finding inspiration in the fresh surroundings. In an interview with the director of the Ram Gallery in Brussels, he explained, "I was working predominantly in porcelain before this residency, and this project was a chance to explore working with some local clays, working with different materials, and kind of creating new processes and new combinations of materials." He then showed off one of the pieces he had on exhibit, which combined stoneware and porcelain into a single object. After his time in Norway, Sam completed an apprenticeship in Japan, once again studying different ceramic approaches.
In Japan, the way of throwing gives the artist much more of an impression of the interior form.
Armed with this new perspective, Sam was inspired to create a new body of work. He presented the final product at Sokyo Gallery in Kyoto, Japan, in an exhibition he called Interior and Exterior. When it was time for King Charles III to be crowned on May 6, 2023, Sam Chatto and his family were obviously front and centre, and royal watchers most definitely took notice. Sam was quickly dubbed the new royal hottie on social media, with some declaring him the hunky heartthrob who nearly stole the show. Sam did look particularly suave at Westminster Abbey that day, wearing a formal morning suit accompanied by a maroon tie and a colourful array of military medals. He was seated in the 5th row, and while he was farther back than some of his heavily crushing fans may have liked, he still brought plenty of swag to the coronation. About a year after graduation from the University of Edinburgh, Sam got into something new and somewhat sportier. Every royal watcher knows how passionate Prince Harry is about polo, even Netflix, who turned his hobby into a full-blown documentary series. But Sam opted for a physical pursuit that was entirely horse-free. In 2019, the young royal headed off to India for a yoga intensive. Afterward, he blissfully posted about the experience on Insta, writing, "I also had the most amazing 6 weeks in India, 4 of which were spent completing my 200-hour yoga teacher training. Although I have no plans of teaching anytime soon, it was an incredibly eye-opening experience which I am so deeply grateful for." So much for joining the ranks of royals who work regular jobs. Sam has been described as one of Britain's most eligible bachelors, but the truth is, he hasn't been romantically available for some time. Since 2021, he's been linked to fellow artist Eleanor Exergian, and being a pair of artists doing art things, the two have often been spotted together at National Gallery events. In 2024, their relationship seemed to get pretty serious, both professionally and romantically. That July, they both had work included in a group exhibition at London's Redfern Gallery, and 6 months later, Exergian was photographed attending the British royal family's Christmas at Sandringham on Sam's arm. Royal watchers took note, comparing Exergian to Meghan Markle.
It's a royal first. Meghan Markle spending Christmas with the Queen, an honor usually reserved for family and spouses, not fiancés.
After all, Meghan was only invited to attend the Sandringham Christmas once it became clear that she and Prince Harry were headed for marriage. And although Sam and Eleanor still haven't announced their engagement, the rumours are out there. Of course, it goes without saying that Exergian doesn't bring fame with her to the relationship, or the controversy that goes along with it, but she is an accomplished artist in her own right. So if she and Sam do tie the knot, Exergian would become one of the few professional women in the British royal family. On February 5, 1999, Sarah and Daniel Chatto gave Princess Margaret a second grandson, Arthur. But this time, there was no official presentation to the press on the steps of Portland Hospital. Arthur's birth remained under the radar and paparazzi-free. Even if Arthur hadn't been a newborn, he probably would have been just fine with it. He doesn't appear to mind his relative anonymity and has continued to stay largely out of the public eye. Although, obviously, he's occasionally spotted at big royal events like Christmas at Sandringham Castle and the Royal Ascot. Like his older brother, Arthur studied at Eton College before enrolling at the University of Edinburgh. But that's where their paths diverge. While Sam is the artist, Arthur chose to study geography. During his time at university, Arthur was romantically involved with fellow student Lizzie Friend, but by 2024, Arthur had made Elle Australia's list of hot single royals, making him one of England's most eligible bachelors. His good looks haven't gone unnoticed. He's even become a brand ambassador for high-end items like Elliott Brown watches and Jotner outdoor wear, so he's not completely under the royal radar. Back in the day, Arthur frequently took to Instagram to post hunky photos that garnered him a slew of seriously crushing fans. Then, something happened that made him extremely uncomfortable, and he quit social media altogether. In 2022, at the service of Thanksgiving at St. Paul's Cathedral during Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee celebration, Arthur was spotted looking particularly handsome. Social media went nuts for the guy, and his Instagram comments were full of crushes, comments, and even a few marriage proposals. It must have been too much for Arthur, who quickly deleted his Instagram page and never looked back. While Sam prefers yoga, Arthur is into extreme sports. Back in 2020, he took part in the Great Britain Row Challenge, in which participants raced the entirety of Great Britain's coastline in a rowboat without stopping. And we really mean without stopping. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for as long as it takes.
This is the toughest rowing race in the world, and I'd ask anybody to challenge that statement.
That's 2,000 miles. Oh, and there are winds and tides and rocks that aren't always in the rowers' favour. And to give you an idea of how long it actually takes, the first ever team to complete the circuit did so in 26 days, 21 hours and 14 minutes, without stopping. The race had been happening since 2005, and in 15 years only 4 teams had completed the challenge. Speaking to The Telegraph before the event, Arthur shared, "I'd probably say I was worried about capsizing, but we should be harnessed in, and it is a self-righting boat, so in theory if we do capsize, we should flip back around." The firm might have had reservations about the undertaking, but when asked about his family, Arthur confided, "With my mum, I think it's always best not to tell her the full details, and then she can't get too worried. Then when you're back, touch wood, she won't worry as much." Spoiler alert, his team made it, although it took 42 days. Was it worth it? Personally, who knows, but their efforts raised over $28,000 for charity. In 2021, Arthur decided to leave the high life behind and joined the Royal Marines. He was the first royal to enlist in the Royal Marines since Prince Edward. Speaking to the US Sun, a royal insider reported, "Arthur told the Queen all about it and she's pleased and proud. Prince Edward has been very supportive. Arthur has even been going off into the wilds at Balmoral with all his kit and camping out as he prepares for the commando training." The source added that Arthur would be hitting the ground running, saying, "He has gone straight into the officer training in this year's intake and is very keen and up for it. It's a dead cert he'll get a lot further than Prince Edward ever did." In case you haven't kept up, Edward served 3 years while in university before dropping out of the service. And, unsurprisingly, Arthur has gotten quite a lot of attention when he's been seen in uniform. Moving to the other branch of Princess Margaret's family, Charles Armstrong-Jones was born on July 1, 1999 to David Armstrong-Jones, 2nd Earl of Snowdon, and Serena Armstrong-Jones, Countess of Snowdon. As of 2025, Charles is 27th in line to the British throne. His father is number 26. Charles is younger than the Chatto sons, and he's the only one of Princess Margaret's grandsons to hold a title. That's because British titles are passed down through the male line. So Princess Margaret's former husband, Anthony Armstrong-Jones, Earl of Snowdon, passed the title down to his son, David. When he dies, the earldom will pass to his eldest son, Charles, making him the 3rd Earl of Snowdon. In the meantime, Charles holds the title of Viscount Linley. Unlike the Chatto siblings, Charles actually spent a couple of years living in Kensington Palace because his parents wanted to be close to Margaret at the end of her life. Yes, he was just 3 years old when Margaret died, but he seems to have absorbed some of her passion for music. As Charles's sister, Lady Margarita Armstrong-Jones, told Tatler, he is very into his orchestral music. He is self-taught and he can sing, play the piano and the guitar. It's wonderful. Not only was Princess Margaret around during his early years, but Anthony Armstrong-Jones was also part of his life and shared his love of photography with his grandchildren.
Photographs should be simple, make people react, to laugh, to cry, but not to wince, I hope.
Charles has spent more time in the royal spotlight than his cousins. He once held the ceremonial position of Page of Honour, but in recent years, he's retreated from public life. As a young adult, Charles shifted his focus to academics. Like his Chatto cousins, he attended Eton College, then went on to Loughborough University where he studied product design engineering. Teasing royal watchers with an appearance alongside the late Queen in 2019 at a church service in Balmoral, Scotland, Charles has kept his life relatively private ever since. He does have an Instagram account, but keeps it private, and has just over 400 followers. Clearly, he's happy living the quiet life. Charles's sister, Lady Margarita Armstrong-Jones, is fundamentally different from Princess Margaret's other grandchildren. For one thing, she's the late princess's only granddaughter. She's also the only one of Margaret's grandchildren to have been born following the princess's death in 2002. Born on May 14, 2002, Margarita bears a strong family resemblance to Margaret, and like her grandmother before her, Margarita is a socialite who loves a good party. Over the years, she's been spotted at all sorts of royal events, and was even a bridesmaid in Prince William and Princess Catherine's 2011 wedding. But whereas Margaret was once criticised for having far too much fun, Margarita enjoys the privileges of a lower rank and the quieter life that goes along with it. She has spent a considerable amount of time away from England, summering at her family's estate at Chatto in the south of France. She described the estate to Tatler in 2020, saying, "We could run wild and have friends over. It was a very relaxed, beautiful place. It was an old farmhouse. It wasn't anything crazy. And they turned it into a beautiful house with lots of places for people to stay and have a fun, relaxed time." Margarita might live a quietish life, but she never misses an opportunity to dress up. She lit up King Charles III's coronation in a stunning pale pink ensemble, custom-made by Paris-based designer Béatrice Ferron. It struck the perfect balance between sophistication and youth. To top off the look, Margarita chose a Stephen Jones headband of silk tulle, embroidered accents, and feathers. She wore a pair of drop-down earrings and natural makeup, along with light pink nail polish. It was Charles and Camilla's big day, but Margarita was the picture of sophistication. She takes style seriously, and seems to have inherited some of her late grandmother's love of baubles, art, and friends. Lady Margarita actually moved to Paris, something Princess Margaret was never free to do. Once there, she enrolled at the Haute École de Joaillerie Fine Arts and Jewelry Making Academy. When asked what sort of jewelry she makes, she replied, "Something wacky and bold. I love costume jewelry as well." Margarita loved living abroad, saying, "I speak a little bit of French and I just love the idea of being in Paris." Although Lady Margarita never had the chance to meet her grandmother, she seems committed to ensuring that Princess Margaret's legacy lives on. She's been very vocal in her search for recognition for Margaret's accomplishments, especially in the fashion arena. In a 2025 interview with Hello, she said, "I think she was an international influence of style and fun." Few royal watchers would disagree. Margarita then pointed to an elegant photograph of Margaret on her island retreat in Mustique, adding, "I like the peachy dress, that's pretty cool." But just because Margarita has reaffirmed Princess Margaret's best fashion moments doesn't mean she lacks a style of her own. Far from remaining in her grandmother's shadow, Margarita has been sure to develop her own tastes, explaining, "I think her style is loved by everyone. I suppose it does play into me, but not solely. I think everyone's different, and I do look up to her, but I do what comes naturally to me." But while Margarita has insisted on cultivating her own identity style-wise, that doesn't mean that she won't give credit where it's due. She once told Tatler that Margaret inspired her passion for jewellery design, explaining, "I probably get the photography from my grandfather and the jewellery from my grandmother." Of course, Princess Margaret isn't the only one of Lady Margarita's family members to pass down a love of the arts. Her grandfather, Anthony Armstrong-Jones, also had a profound influence on his only granddaughter. As a professional photographer with a great creative eye, Anthony was able to expose Margarita to artistry at a young age. As she would later tell Tatler, "We would see him to have our portraits taken. He would always have these amazing cameras, which he would pull out for special effect. His backdrops were always very simple. He would let you be yourself."
He said to me, "You should get up close with your camera and really up." And I said, "Well, I can't. I find it intrusive." And he said, "Well, that's what being a photographer is all about."
Being exposed to the arts early on pushed Margarita to seek out her own creative passions. Speaking with Hello in 2025, she revealed that she'd accepted a job working as a jewellery designer for a brand called Matita. When asked if Anthony had given her his creative gene, Margarita replied, "Well, it must have come from somewhere." Unlike her grandmother Margaret, her grandfather lived until 2017, so they had nearly 15 years together. And it seems like Lady Margarita didn't take him for granted. She asked him questions about being an artist and used his answers to guide her in her own artistic journey.